One of the most misunderstood things in life is where to put your energy. People pour so much into relationships, opinions, trends, everything external. But the most powerful investment you will ever make is in yourself. That's not some throwaway motivational line. It's a psychological truth. The time you spend building yourself, your mind, your body, your character is the foundation for everything you're going to accomplish. I think most never figure that out because they're too distracted trying to get validation or approval from everywhere. But within, here's the thing, the world is loud. It's constantly throwing messages at you, what you should look like, how you should think, what kind of success matters. And if you don't have a strong center, you'll just drift. You'll live reactively. You become a version of yourself shaped by algorithms, opinions, and insecurities instead of vision, purpose, and clarity. That's why focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's the difference between a pawn and being a player. When you deliberately invest in your growth, you begin to understand what makes you tick. That self-awareness becomes your compass. Just in general, it's just you start identifying the environments, people, and habits that align with your goals, and just as importantly, the ones that don't. You stop outsourcing your identity to social media or your friend group or your past, and start designing your future based on who you actually are and what you actually want. That's what focusing on yourself really means, taking responsibility for shaping your own evolution. Let's talk about the psychology for a second. Research in cognitive science shows that people who regularly engage in introspection and skill development increase not just competence, but confidence. And confidence isn't just some vibe. It's the currency that allows you to take risks, make bold decisions, and recover when things fall apart. When you work on yourself consistently, you build an internal structure that's hard to shake. That structure gives you momentum, and momentum creates opportunity. Think about it. When you're getting sharper mentally, stronger physically, calmer emotionally, you move differently, you speak more clarity, you execute with more intention, people notice, and you attract what you're becoming. But it has to start with you. It's just not with waiting for someone to pick you or permission or hand you a path. You build the path by building you. And yeah, it's hard. It's uncomfortable. Focusing on yourself means you're going to have to be honest with yourself. You're going to have to face the gap between where you are and where you could be. That's not easy, but that's real. And real is what moves the needle. We live in a time where it's easy to confuse activity with progress. You can be busy all day, connected to everything and achieving nothing. But when you start to carve out space to work on yourself, when you start reading, learning, creating, not to impress anyone, but because it makes you better, that's when things change. That's when growth becomes exponential, not just in what you're doing, but in who becoming. And the craziest part, when you become the best version of yourself, everyone around you benefits. You bring better energy, better ideas, better leadership. You become someone who elevates others simply by being solid in your own purpose. Focusing on yourself is how to become a person worth following, not because you chase followers, but because you chased excellence. At the core, it's about shifting from being reactive to being intentional, from drifting to designing, from consuming life to creating it. When you realize that you are both the project and the architect, life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. So if you take nothing else from this, take this in general, it's just the most valuable thing you can build is you, because no one else is going to do it for you. And once you get that, once you really feel that the game changes, the future doesn't belong to the lutest or the luckiest. It belongs to the most prepared. And preparation starts the moment you choose to make yourself your number one priority. One of the biggest things holding people back today isn't a lack of talent or drive. It's noise, endless noise, opinions from people who don't know you, just judgment from people who've never anything, pressure from expectations that were never even yours to begin with. And if you don't learn how to shut that out, you'll end up living someone else's version of success, not your own. Here's what happens from the moment you wake up. The world is trying to shape your mind. Notifications, news feeds, ads, critics. They all want your attention, and attention is energy. So if you're constantly giving it away, if you're constantly reacting instead of reflecting, you're draining the very fuel you need to chase your dreams. You can't build something meaningful if your mind is constantly being hijacked by meaningless things. Now, let's take this deeper. Psychologically, your brain is wired to seek belonging. That's survival levels. Back in the day, if the tribe didn't like you, you were out. That meant danger. So we've evolved to care sometimes too much about others' things. Here's the twisting. The people you're trying to impress aren't your tribe. They're just digital silhouettes, strangers, people who don't live your light-ins, care, understand your purpose. And still, we let them rent space in our heads for free. That has consequences. When you listen to too many voices, you start doubting your own. You overthink. You second guess. You start making safe choices. You play small, not because you're not capable of more, but because the noise convinces you that more is risky. Or worse, that it's selfish. So you compromise, you conform, you trade authenticity for approval. And before you know it, you're not even sure who you are anymore. You've got to learn to mute the world so you can hear yourself think. Seriously, get quit, not just for peace, but for power. Reflection is where self-direction starts. when you create space away from noise, and so away from screens, away from the need to constantly perform or explain yourself. That's when your real thoughts surface. That's when you reconnect with your core values. What actually matters to you, not what looks good on a Rensum or a feed. You can't follow your dream if you're constantly checking if it's trending. There's a kind of clarity that only comes from solitude. It's uncomfortable at first. Silence can feel heavy, especially when you're used to distractions, but it's also honest. In silence, you face your own voice unfiltered, and that voice, the one that whispers in your gut when you're still, is usually right. That voice isn't trying to please anyone. It just tells the truth. And if you can learn to listen to it, you'll start making decisions based on vision instead of validation. Philosophically, this is about reclaiming agency. It's about stepping off the conveyor belt of public opinion and choosing your own direction. That doesn't mean you reject advice or community, but it does mean you become selective. You start filtered back through the lens of, does this align with who I'm becoming? Instead of, will this make them like me? And let's be real. People will talk either way. If you fail, and they'll have something to say. If you succeed, they'll still have something to say. So why not do what you believe in? Why not chase the thing that keeps you up at night? Not because someone else told you it matters, because it matters to you. One of the biggest unlocks in life is realizing that not every voice deserves your attention. Respect is one thing. Influence is another. You've got to protect your mental ecosystem like your house, because it is. If you keep the doors open to every random opinion, don't be surprised when the place gets chaotic. You want to be great. You want to build something that lasts. Then you need focus. And focus demands science, no forever, but long enough to realign, long enough to hear yourself clearly and move with intention, long enough to drown out the noise and turn up your own frequency in a world that profits off your distraction. Choosing clarity is a rebellious act. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Are you going to spend your life reacting to the noise, or are you going to get quiet enough to remember what your voice actually sounds like? It's just because the truth is your dream doesn't need to be louder. You need to be more dialed in. You know what's crazy? So many people treat their dreams like a hobby, like this optional thing they'll get around to once life calms down or when the timing is perfect, which, by the way, never happens. But what they don't realize is that a dream isn't just some distant wish. It's a compass. It's the one thing that can cut through all the confusion, the doubt, the distractions. It's just, and actually give your life direction. Think about it. When you don't have a clear vision, life becomes reactive. You wake up every day responding to things instead of initiating. You're pulled in 100 different directions, trying to keep up, trying to stay relevant, trying to meet everyone's expectations. But when you focus on your dream, you flip that dynamic. Suddenly, just you're deciding where you're going, not drifting. You're not driving. This isn't just motivational full fluff. It's rooted in deep psychology. We're wired to search for meaning. And when we don't find it, we fill the gap with distractions, with short-term dopamine hits like applause, attention, comfort. But those things never satisfy for long because they don't answer the bigger question, why am I here? What am I building? That's what your dream gives you. A target, a purpose, a reason to push through the boredom and the setbacks and the hard days. And no, your dream doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't need to go viral. It just has to matter to you. Maybe it's starting a business. Maybe it's writing a book, raising a family, creating something real in your community. Whatever it is, when you focus on that dream and move toward it with discipline, your life takes shape. You stop reacting to circumstances and start engineering your environment to serve your mission. Now, here's where it gets deeping. When you commit to your dream, you begin to align your identity with it. You stop being just someone who wants to, and you become someone who does. And the more consistent you are, the more your habits, your routines, your thoughts, everything begins to orbit around that dream. That's how transformation happens, not overnight, not in some big explosion, but slowly through alignment, through daily repetition, through purpose-driven action. This is why dreams can't just live in your head. They have to live in your behavior. If you say you want to be a creator, but you're not creating, and so it's not a dream, it's a fantasy. If you say you want freedom but won't discipline yourself, what you actually want is comfort. And comfort doesn't get you anywhere meaningful. Progress does. And progress is built on choices, small ones, repeated every single day. And yes, people will question you. You'll be misunderstood. You might even question yourself when things get tough. But that's part of the deal. If your dream doesn't feel like you're risking something, it's probably not big enough you. It should stretch you, it'd scare you a little, not because it's unrealistic, but because it's calling you to become more than you currently are. That's the point. Here's what most people get wrong. They think the dream is the reward. It's not in general. It's just who you become chasing it. That's the reward. The confidence, the discipline, the resilience, the clarity. That's what sticks with you long after the outcome. Even if you never fully arrive, you're better because you tried. And most importantly, you lived life on your terms, not someone else's. Philosophically, this is about authorship. Are you writing your own story, or are you just living out a script handed to you by fear, tradition, or distraction? Dreams put the pen back in your hand. They remind you that you don't have to settle. It's just that there's something in you worth building around. And when you stop waiting for the right time and start treating your dream as a daily responsibility, your entire life shifts. General, it's just ask yourself honestly, are you aligned with your dream? Are you just thinking about it while living out someone else's blueprint? Because here's the truth. Your dream isn't just something nice to have. It's the signal in the noise, the map when everything feels lost. And if you're brave enough to follow it, it will take you exactly where you were meant to go. Here's a hard truth most people don't want to hear. You can't be everything to everyone. You can't chase your dream and also try to maintain 50 different versions of yourself, all curated to fit into what other people expect. At some point, you have to choose depth or distraction. Do you want to grow into the person you're meant to become? Or you want to keep managing dozens of yourself, hoping no one notices how split you really feel? We live in a world that glorifies being everywhere, doing everything, staying constantly available, constantly involved. But multitasking your identity is one of the fastest ways to lose clarity. And without clarity, there's no focus. And without focus, just your dream stays on the shelf. Just another someday plan gathering dust. Let's look at this psychologically. The brain isn't designed to hold conflicting identities. When you act one way around certain people, then totally switch it up in another context, what you're doing is splitting your cognitive load. It's like running 100 apps in the background on your phone. You drain battery fast. You lose efficiency. Your system lags. Same thing happens in life. When you're constantly switching masks, you burn out. And worse, you lose track of who you actually are underneath all of it. There's this subtle fear that if you fully commit to yourself and your dream, you'll lose people. You'll make others uncomfortable. You'll be too much. But the real danger is being too little, too diluted, too distracted, too divided to make any real progress. The truth is, it's just you can't build something extraordinary while also being obsessed with being agreeable. You have to make peace with the fact that focus comes at a cost. In general, it's just people will misunderstand you when you prioritize your growth. They might think you're distant or selfish or intense. Let them. That's not your problem to solve. You weren't put here to keep everyone comfortable. You were put here to unlock your potential, and that doesn't happen when your energy is scattered across 100 surface level commitments. There's something deeply philosophical about narrowing your focus. It's a declaration that says, I know who I am and I know what matters to me. That kind of inner alignment is rare, especially today where it's so easy to posture and pretend and blend in. But when you choose to go deep instead of wide, when you streamline your identity around your vision, you stop chasing noise and start building something real. And this isn't about isolation. It's not about cutting people out, becoming selfish. It's about filtering. It's about saying, if it doesn't align with who I'm becoming in general, it's just, it doesn't get access to my energy. That's not arrogance. That's maturity. That's the discipline it takes to actually execute on something meaningful. You can't be locked in and spread at the same time. You can't commit to mastering your craft while also checking to make sure every single person is okay with your path. At some point, you have to pick a lane. You have to build an identity that can carry the weight of your dream without collapsing under the pressure of performance, because your dream doesn't need a diluted version of you. It's just, it doesn't need the version that's worried about what your friends think or whether your coworkers approve or whether you're coming off as too focused. Your dream needs your whole self, unapologetically invested, all chips in. That kind of energy is rare. It's powerful. And it moves things just. So what are you choosing today? Are you trying to be everything? Are you becoming someone specific, someone solid, someone aligned? Because here's the bottom line. You can wear 100 masks and be liked by everyone, or you can take them off, stand in your truth, and actually move the needle on what matters. But you can't do both. You know, everyone talks about motivation like it's this magic fuel that's always there until it isn't. One day you're on fire, waking up before sunrise to chase your goals. The next, you can't drag yourself out of bed. That's because motivation is a mood, not a muscle. It comes and goes. And if you rely on it, you'll be hostage to how you feel in any given moment. Discipline, it's just, on the other hand, is a commitment you make to yourself that doesn't care about moods. It's what gets you out the door when the alarm rings, even though every neuron in your body wants to hit snooze. Let's be honest, building anything worthwhile is a marathon. There will be not a sprint when inspiration strikes, but more often there will be days where the last thing you want is to stick to your plan. It's just, that's where discipline shines. It's the consistent yes to the actions that lead to your dream, and the consistent no to the temptations that seduce you away. It's about creating systems that run on autopilot, so when motivation takes a vacation, your structure carries you forward. Think about the way habits work. The brain is lazy by design. It craves shortcuts. If you can wire the behavior you need into your daily routine, you bypass the endless debate in your head. You don't think, should I write today or should I exercise? You just do it because that's who you are. That's the power of discipline over distraction. It closes the gap between intention and action. And once you start shrinking that gap, momentum becomes your ally. There's a psychological principle called the commitment consistency. bias. Basically, when you tell someone or yourself that you're going to do something, you feel an internal pressure to follow through. Just to maintain a consistent self-image, you can leverage that by making your commitments public or tracking them in a visible way. Use calendars, apps, a journal, whatever it takes to expose your goals to daylight. You'll be surprised how a little external accountability transforms. Maybe into must, but accountability only works if you guard your time like it's your most precious asset, which it is. Distractions are not innocent, they're stealthy thieves. Each notification, each random scroll chips away your focus. That's why time blocking is such a game changer. When you schedule skills-specific windows for deep work and you protect those windows fiercely, you're sending a signal to your brain. This matters. And over time, you build a fortress of focus that is hard to breach. Saying no is another aspect of discipline that too many people underestimate. There's social pressure to always be available, to say yes to every opportunity, to join every project. But every yes to something that doesn't align with your core goal is a no to your dream. You can be polite and still be firm. You can honor relationships without sacrificing your progress. Learning to say no with respect and clarity is a muscle, one you have to work out regularly. And let's talk about recovery, because discipline isn't about turning yourself to a machine. It's about sustainable consistency. You need rest, you need play, you need the kind down time that lets your creativity and energy recharge. Discipline means planning your breaks as intentionally in your work sessions. That way, when you step away, you do so without guilt, knowing you'll be back fresh and ready. It's just that cycle of focused effort and deliberate rest is what prevents burnout and keeps you growing over the long haul. Philosophically, this is about mastering your inner world. If you can navigate your impulses, if you can build the container that holds your ambition, you become the author of your actions instead of the audience. You reclaim the space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl talked about that space as the genesis of freedom. You might not control everything that happens to you, but you always control how you respond. Discipline is the tool you use to wield that freedom. Just at the end of the day, it isn't the grand gestures, the moments of peak inspiration that define your trajectory. It's the everyday choices stacked one on top of the other that build the path under your feet. When you choose discipline over distraction, you're choosing to chart your own course. You're choosing to invest in the compound interest of small, consistent actions. And that more than anything is what turns dreams into reality. So here's what I want you to remember. You're the gatekeeper of your own potential. Every time you honor your commitment, it's just, you strengthen the barrier against distraction. Every time you say no to the trivial, you say yes to the essential. And every time you show up, no matter how you feel, you move one step closer to the life you envision. It's a day that you won't wait for motivation. Decide that you'll build your discipline muscle. Block your time, guard your focus, and rest intentionally. Because discipline isn't just your most powerful ally in the pursuit of greatness. There's a paradox when it comes to chasing your dream. On the one hand, it's all about you, your vision, your choices, your discipline. But on the other hand, the dream becomes real the moment you realize it's bigger than you. It starts with self-focus, but it matures into impact. And here's the truth most people missing: the more you grow into your potential, the more responsibility you have to give back, to lead, to serve, to create something that outlives you. We live in a culture that's obsessed with the self-care, self-improvement, self-promotion. General, it's just, and there's value in all of that. But if your dream ends with you, if the only goal is your comfort, your freedom, your success, you'll hit a wall, because fulfillment doesn't from getting everything you want. It comes from becoming someone who can contribute in a way that actually matters. Contribution is the finish line of every meaningful dream. Now, this isn't about becoming a savior or carrying the weight of the world. It's about recognizing that the more you develop yourself, the more equipped you are to lift others. When you're focused, it's just disciplined and aligned with your purpose, you create overflow. You don't give from your survival, you give from your strength. That's the difference between people who burn out and people who build legacy. One is reactive, the other is intentional. And that kind of contribution starts small. It's easy to romanticize the idea of changing the world, but sometimes changing someone's week is the real win. When you live with integrity, when you follow through, when you bring energy into the room instead of draining it, you're already shaping the environment around you. Influence isn't always loud. Just sometimes it's subtle. It's how you show up, how you treat people, how consistent your actions are with your words. That's real leadership, whether you've got a platform or not. There's a psychological depth to this too. Humans are wired for connection. We're tribal. We need to feel that we belong and that we matter. The pursuit of your dream becomes sustainable when it's linked to something greater than ego. If you're only chasing to validation or achievement for your own sake, it's only a matter of time before it feels hollow. But when your work contributes to the lives of others, when it solves problems, lifts people up, even just inspires someone to keep going, it becomes meaningful. And meaning is what keeps you going when nothing else does. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. You don't need a grand philanthropic plan on day one, but you do need awareness. You need to keep asking, who am I becoming through this dream? And how can I make sure that who I'm becoming adds value to the world around me? Those questions are your compass. They keep you grounded when success starts to blur your vision. And here's where it gets really interesting. The more you grow, the more you realize that your dream isn't even fully about the dream itself. It's about the becoming. It's about the evolution. And part of that evolution is realizing you're a node in a network. You're not isolated. Your actions create ripples, whether you see them or not. That random post, that honest conversation, just that thing you created that felt like no one noticed. It might be the catalyst for someone else's journey. You won't always know the impact. But that doesn't mean it's not real. Yeah. From a philosophical standpoint, this is about legacy. What do you leave behind that wasn't there before? Not just in terms of content or achievements, but in how you made people feel in general. It's just how you raised the standard, how you challenged others to think differently. Your legacy isn't just your resume. It's the energy you leave in the room. It's what people remember when they talk about you long after you're gone. That's why focusing on yourself and your dream isn't selfish. It's strategic. Just because when you do the inner work, when you push through resistance, when you stop chasing distractions, when you choose discipline over comfort, you become someone worth following, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And in a world drowning in noise and performance, being real is revolutionary. So if you're serious about your dream, ask yourself this: what will the people around me gain because I chose not to quit? That's where the power is, not just in achieving the dream, but in becoming the kind of person who turns a personal vision into a shared reality. Because in the end, the goal isn't just to live a life you're proud of. The goal is to live a life that echoes.